Hello and welcome to another episode of Versus brought to you by the Modern Nerd. I am Sir Slice and I have an amazing guest with me here today, a Mr. Jeremy Vickery, who has worked in this industry in the lighting capacity, lighting effects, and other stuff, I'm assuming, in such titles as The Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, Wall-E, Brave, Inside Out. In video games, he's worked in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Uncharted, and Days Gone. And in some of his TV performances, he's had Westworld and the upcoming Fallout. So we've got a lot of stuff that you've done and a lot of things to go over. Jeremy, welcome and thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be a part. This is
I'm
fun.
I'm so happy to have run into you at Full Sail Hall of Fame. I believe we actually met a couple years ago, 2 years
I think we
ago
did.
at Hall
Yep.
of Fame 12, but we got to meet again at Full Sail Hall of Fame 13, where we're really connected and got to have a wonderful conversation in between panels and other things that were happening. So hopefully we can expand on that and pick your brain and see where it all comes from in the lighting world. So before I ask you where your inspirations were, give us a little breakdown of what it is that you kind of do in the industry.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because when I say I'm a lighting artist or a lighting director, a lot of people are like, what does that mean? And it's adding the light and the color into the final images of a show. So, like in this image that I have right here, warm light from this side, cool light from this side, the background, the mood, the tone, the feeling to the whole thing. That's been the majority of my career. I've also done concept design and I've done some 3D modeling as well, but I kind of accidentally got into lighting and have never gone back. I love it. It's the thing that pulls everything together in an image.
Sure.
So yeah.
Completely. It'll set the tone, set the mood. A lot of people start to think of the current lighting situation coming from like Game of Thrones in that last season where you couldn't see anything. And I don't know whose decision that was and why Hollywood and media sources decided to just be like, we're going to make it look more like a naturally dark situation. Whereas in the past, you see a lot of these older movies where it's like it's nighttime, but you can see every detail of the room around you. Like it literally just looks like it's sunset, which I'm like,
Right.
cool, I get it. It's a darker tone. You give us some grays, you give us some browns. It looks like it's darks. We understand it's nighttime. Mission accomplished. I don't need to be going like, wait, turn the contrast up all the way. What's happening? So, it's what you do that makes everything visible, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much for not just
Yeah.
making it a black screen with an occasional flash of fire.
I think
Um,
lighting, just I gotta say something here because I
please,
agree. Lighting is about getting you to understand the image quickly.
yeah,
It's to draw your eye where you need to see it. It is to shape the objects in such a way that you can clearly see what is what instantly. If you only have an average of 2 to 4 seconds per shot, you better understand what you're seeing really quickly. So this trend of going super dark is really sad because now you're not understanding anymore. And that's exactly the opposite, the point of what good lighting should do.
yeah, yeah, completely. And it's not an aspect that gets talked about enough. Now, granted, I'm sitting in a room where like this is just completely like, shh, but I've got a couple of lights in front of me so that I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
just
it
like a
looks good.
silhouette and everything. But so speaking of accidentally falling into lighting, let's go back even further than that. Like, what kind of made you want to get into the entertainment industry? Because it very much is still part of the entertainment industry. You've done movies, you've done video games, you've done TV shows. Like, where did it all start? Was it a movie? Was it something that like you saw on screen and were like, oh man, I want to design, I want to do something with all of this?
Well, it's interesting growing up because I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire. And so there weren't other people around me that do this professionally. I didn't know any professional artists or people in the movie industry. I remember, this is back in the 80s. So I remember watching like, the Michael Jackson Thriller video and just thinking that was so
Classic.
cool. And I saw behind the scenes where they had like extra contact lenses to make them look like werewolves. And I just loved everything special effects. Loved Star Wars, loved Indiana Jones and the Goonies and Ghostbusters and everything at the time that was just so amazing. And I think in the back of my brain, I was like, I want to do that, but I didn't consciously say that I didn't think I could because I just didn't know how to get into that. I just
Sure.
had the people around me that are like just regular careers. My great grandfather, whom I never met, was an inventor
Oh
for
wow.
GE, and he actually his name is on the patent for the timer on the electric traffic light.
Huh.
And I just thought it was the coolest thing to be like,
Yeah.
you know, I want to be an inventor or a scientist. Oh, but then I also love art and I love drawing. And then I also love music and I love a little bit of, you know, drama and theater. And I love all these different things. And I just couldn't figure out which thing I wanted until I got through high school. And, you know, it all kind of came together. You know, animation is kind of all of those things in one. It's technology, it's
Oh
light,
yeah.
it's color, it's, you know, it's the shape and the form and the, you know, the everything of everything. And it just kind of all came together of like, I think that that's what I want to study. Now this is in the early 90s when I graduated from high school, and there wasn't, you know, there weren't a lot of animation. Well, there was 2D animation,
Sure.
but when I went to Full Sail in 1995, right at the beginning, um, Toy Story came out.
Yeah, I was
And I
gonna say that's
remember
the beginning of 3D animation
it
all around.
was exactly, you know, Jurassic Park and Toy Story came out, you know, and I remember going, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to do that. There was also a kids show at the time before Toy Story called VeggieTales.
Yeah.
And
Wait, was that 3D?
that was
Okay.
3D. That was some of the very first 3D stuff ever
That's
done.
crazy because my cousins and I would watch that. We'd go to my grandparents' house every Sunday for dinner, and then like towards the end of it, we'd either catch this weird show called Ghost Writer,
Mm,
where it's like it's this weird detective show of kids, and they have to like pick out like little things, and they'd have like their little book or whatever, and like
yeah,
this letter is highlighted and that one, and it creates a whole different thing. It was weird. But
that's
then
cool.
after that, we would watch Veggie Tales, and which I, you know, there's so many, I quote that so many times. I mean, if anyone who hasn't seen it, it's this super strange, it is like a Christian show almost,
Yeah,
which I didn't know at the time, and then like looking back on it, I'm like, oh, okay, very weird. You got this Bob the tomato or whatever, and
yeah.
like this pickle or cucumber dude,
Larry the
and
cucumber.
Larry the
Yep,
cucumber. And I remember one episode they're talking about like, yeah, I would like all the strawberries, and they're like
yep.
Swedish or something. And I was like, what is happening right now? This is trippy and weird. But yes, it was. And now that you think about it, it was a 3D thing. So go on. I cut you off for my own rambles.
So, I mean, I would watch this even as going into college of just like that is really cool. I want to do 3D animation. In fact, enough so that when I graduated from Full Sail, I was like, oh, I'm going to get into Pixar because I was valedictorian in my class. I mean, it's going to be great. And I sent out demo reels everywhere, which at the time was like a physical portfolio and a VHS tape that I had to mail in the mail
Mm-hmm.
and spend like $30 per thing to send it to each place. And then I got the reject postcard from all these different studios. There were very few studios doing animation at that point. It was DreamWorks, Pixar, um, the Blue Sky. You
Yeah.
know, there was almost none. You know, but there was a bunch of advertising studios or whatever, and I got rejects from all of them or
Oh
didn't
man.
hear back. And so I actually contacted the company in Chicago that Big Idea Productions that made VeggieTales, and that was my first job. So I went and worked on VeggieTales. So
Oh
it's
no
been,
shit.
yeah.
That's hilarious. I'm gonna have to tell my cousins. They're gonna be like, "What? That show? That's hilarious."
Yeah, I mean that's where first job ever. I mean, I called them because I looked them up and I called the front desk. You know, and we live in a different
That is, yeah,
age
that's
now.
not something that happens nowadays.
No, and I said I really I'm freshly graduated. I'm really passionate, and I want to make movies and TV shows and whatever. I just want to be creative, and you do cool things. So, you know, could I come in for a tour and maybe meet somebody? And they were like, well, only if you pay for it yourself. So I got in a car from Florida and with two friends, and we drove 24 hours to
Yeah,
Chicago, paid for the
that's
whole thing on my own, and they let me in and I got hired on the spot, you know? So
wow. That's
that
talk
was,
about a story, man. Like that's you don't hear stories like that because it's just business isn't conducted that way really anymore. You know, I mean, unless you're in like, you know, like a service industry, they might hire
yeah.
you on the spot kind of stuff. But like to get into like a studio of some kind and just be like, yep, come on in, you'll start on Monday. Like that just doesn't
Yeah.
happen. There's background checks. I've sent out in the last couple of weeks that I've moved back home, I've sent out several dozen resumes, and they're all like, nah, 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 because
Yeah.
changing careers or starting fresh when you're younger, that's a scary time. That's how it's hard to do. I'm doing
Yeah.
it now. I'm almost 40. Even when you're in your 20s, that's still scary to do, to get out there and be like, I'm gonna do something, and then get all these rejection letters and say no, and then no, and then no. So how did you kind of like overcome that? Obviously you drove up there, but like, what were you saying to yourself to be like, no, I want to do this?
I mean, it was a desperate point. Like I graduated. It took 6 months before I got a job.
Oh
I
man.
applied everywhere and did everything I could. So it was just that moment of like, this industry is really hard to break into.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just kept going. I'm like, I have no other choice. I have to. I mean, I'm not going to go back and do a job that's not art. Like this is the only thing that I'm trained in. This is the only thing I have skills in. And I think I would die inside if I did something else. So I have to find some way anyway, scraping and clawing and whatever. And it just was the right timing. I did hear something that was interesting recently. I'm going to kind of skip ahead to a philosophical topic,
Yeah,
but
let's do it.
um, the industry is so interesting. Every time you're going for a job, like even after I had Pixar on my resume, I would send out demo reels to 50 companies and get no responses.
Oh man.
And it's all about the timing. And I didn't understand it because there's this impression that like it's hard to get in the door, but once you're in the door, you're set. And like, well, that's not always true. The best analogy that I heard is that this industry is like surfing, more like surfing than like a guaranteed job. If you study nursing, you can get a job in any city, anytime, anywhere. Or at least this is my naive impression that they need nurses everywhere.
Sure.
And if you're a plumber, you could go anywhere. Electrician, you could go anywhere. But in our industry, very particular cities, very limited spots, you know, and you have to wait till a spot opens up. And so, anyhow, the thought of it being like surfing is that you got to paddle out against all these waves and you got to battle through these waves, and then you sit there and you wait, and there's other people that are surfing with you, and you sit in this wave. Oh no, I didn't quite catch it, I wasn't in the right spot. Oh, where does it break? And no, somebody
Mm-hmm.
else got in the way, and this one wasn't big enough, and this one didn't break at all. And then when you finally do catch a wave, it's glorious, and you ride that wave. And what do you have to do right after that? You have to paddle back out. And that like 95% of surfing is waiting.
Yeah.
And that's what this industry is. And so like you have
Hmm.
to have enough passion to go, but I love it enough that I'm going to keep doing it. Like I love riding these waves, and I've worked so many different companies, and I've been so much of a nomad that it's been one of those things to like, but I keep riding it because I love it, and I'm just gonna keep going.
Totally. Totally. It's
Yeah.
funny as you're like saying this analogy, and it's very well said. I love it. My mind, I'm a gamer. And so my mind goes like, oh, it's like playing Fortnite, where it's like
Yeah.
you're in this giant thing and you want to get to the end, and you want to win this round, but you die and there's like 70 people still left, and then you have to
Yeah.
load in and do it again, and you have to load in and do it again, and you just constantly kind of waiting for the right lobby, waiting for the right people. I've got the right gear. I've got so in a sense, it's for me. That's where my my mind goes, because that's just the nerd inside of me. But yeah, no, that's you got to have patience. And I've talked to several other people in various industries, and a lot of it is patience and also having a little bit of thick skin and not letting it get to you. Myself having as I said, applying for a bunch of different places currently, and even other people I know who, like you said, are in the industry. They work in games, they work in movies, and they're sending out their reels, they're sending out their resumes, they're doing all this stuff, and they get the rejection. And one thing that stuck to me that I really liked is a lot of people take rejection as lowering. They don't feel they're worthy. They don't feel like they're
Yeah.
worth it. And what I've found is, someone said it, and I really love it, is just because someone else doesn't see your worth doesn't mean you don't have any. Just because they
Yes.
don't see it doesn't mean you're not worth it. You are worth it. It may not be that moment. It may not be what they're looking for right now. It might not be just perfect timing, but your worth is still intact. It is still the same it was. You've accomplished all the things that you've accomplished. So stick to the grind, keep going out there, and keep doing all this stuff. Really, for all the listeners is,
Yeah.
is
I
is
mean,
where
this
it's
is
at.
normal. This is not that you failed. This is absolutely normal in this industry.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you apply and you don't hear anything back, that is what all of us have to go through. In fact, I was thinking about Lord of the Rings. And this is
Sure.
something I'm thinking of making a new video. I have a YouTube channel and I was thinking about making a video for it soon about, I don't know why it popped into my head, but like in the Lord of the Rings, there's the Dead Marshes, and it's this part where Frodo and Sam have to cross this almost endless
Oh
just
yeah.
sludge. And as they go along, Gollum's like, "Don't follow the lights." And like, "What do you mean?" You look in the water, and there's all these dead people, and they're the people who died fighting battles here. And when Frodo looks at one of them, he falls into the water and he sees all these sparkly lights and they
Hmm.
try to suck him down. And Gollum pulls him back out, like, "Don't follow the lights. We have to keep going." And it's weird because I think that as children, we get these ideas like we're playing games, we're doing art, we're drawing, whatever we're doing, making music. And we're like, "I want to do this for a living." And it's this view, you're like from the Shire and you're like, "I want to be an adventurer." But when you actually get out there, there's this plateau that everyone has to cross. There is no going beyond it. If you want to be a great adventurer, you have to cross the dead marshes of art. And you're going to have work that is cliche and it is mediocre. And you're going to have the voices of all these people from YouTube and from the past and all these great successful people telling you, "Give up, sink into the swamp and die because you're not worth it." And I'm like, "No, you are totally worth it. The only thing you have to do is just continue.
Yeah.
Just get through it. And when you get to the other side, there you go. There's the opportunities, but you have to have that patience." And like, man, we all feel this. Imposter syndrome is here. I have 25 years of experience and a really impressive resume. I feel really important. I feel really, just blessed and amazed and, that I've been able to have this, type of career. And I don't feel that it's because of my amazement. I feel like it was the opportunities were just right time, right place, and I just kept going. Um, and so like I want everyone to know that this is normal.
Yeah.
This is the industry.
Yeah. I want to see what you're going to do with that video. That sounds super intriguing.
Yeah.
So you've worked in, as I've previously stated, you've done movies, you've done games, you've done TV. Um, a two-parter kind of. Is there like an industry that you prefer? Like, did you like working in the movies? Did you like working on the games? How did TV treat you? Like, what was the things you liked, and what are some of the differences between all the industries that were
Yeah.
thrown at you that people might not know about?
So again, I've been a bit of a nomad. And I think the reason that I've been a nomad is because there's a conflict in my soul over loving what I do versus loving where I live. And I'm not a big city person.
Sure.
And a lot of this industry requires me to live in really expensive, crime-ridden, giant cities.
Yep.
I'm like, I don't like sharing apartment walls. I like my space. I like quiet and I like nature and mountains. And so it's been a conflict, and I've gone back and forth. Like, okay, I'm in the city and I love the job, and I hate where I live. Okay, now I'm in the country, but I'm not doing the job that I love, and like this back and forth.
Hmm.
But I've enjoyed every aspect of this. I again feel so fortunate that I've been able to, like, I was in film and animation, loved that, but I had to get out of San Francisco. Just didn't like
Yeah.
living in that area.
So expensive.
Visiting is amazing. It's a
Awesome.
beautiful area, but living there is a whole different thing. And having a young kid, and I was just like, I got to get out. So I took a year sabbatical and moved to Washington State and lived in the mountains and just did hiking and photography for a year, and it was awesome. And at the end of that, like, where do I want to go? I just know that I don't want to go back to California. And the games industry came knocking on my door. Out of the blue, I got a call from Ubisoft saying, "Would you come work on Assassin's Creed with us?" And I'm like, okay, hadn't thought about that. That's kind of cool.
Sure.
And all right, I'd applied to all kinds of places and heard nothing, and then they reached out to me again. The wave just comes and hits you, and there we go.
Yeah.
So I got into games and was there for 5 years, and it was fun. Different challenges, learned other things. 2D composition versus 3D composition. 2D is through the lens of a camera, and film is all 2D. So you can do all kinds of hacks and tricks to have a mysterious light off camera,
Yeah.
that's lighting in. But in games, at least in open world games, you can't. It has to be, you've got to look at it from every single angle. It's more similarly related to theme parks than it is to film.
Hmm.
And so that was a different skill that I learned there. And I love learning new skills and taking the science of lighting and applying it to new things. So I enjoyed that about games. the thing with gaming for me is that I am not a passionate gamer myself. So, I don't play a lot of games. When I play games, they're like the easy ones. I play Minecraft and Lego Harry Potter and Lego Star Wars,
I
and
mean, those are games. To
they're
me,
great games.
there you don't have to be playing, Call of Duty for 12 hours. You don't have to be playing,
Yeah,
Grand Theft Auto. You don't have to be playing all these other games. Like whatever games you play, and this is just like a PSA from me, you're a
yeah.
gamer. Don't let anybody tell you you're not. If that's how you want to identify and you're playing only Lego games, you're a gamer. You're playing games,
Yeah.
love them, don't let someone shit on. Anyway, I say that all the
I
time.
agree
Go
with
ahead.
you.
Yeah,
Okay, so I wasn't a hardcore first person shooter,
sure.
type of person. So when I was working on these games that had those elements, and we're like, okay, you've got to play the game now for 2 weeks to look for bugs. It was like that was the worst part of my job. Everyone is like, wouldn't that be awesome to just get to play games? And like, I hated playing it. I
I have
loved creating it. I loved creating the worlds and the mood and everything like that. But then I have like, okay, now you got to go test to see if your lighting worked. I'm like, oh man. So
That's kind of funny. It's not really something that because everybody assumes when someone's in the gaming industry that they're like, I want to be in the gaming industry. I love games. But that's
yeah,
as spoken by you, that's not always necessarily true. There's lots of people
right.
probably that are like, this is a job. Like, this is what my skill set is, and it happens to fit into video games. So I'll go do that. They pay the rent. I like
Yep.
making this game. I like the story, but like, I don't know, I'm not going to sit there and play this game for 12 hours a day and just kind of drain my mind. So it's kind of fascinating to hear something like that, which kind of leads me into a question that I usually ask everybody that's in the industry, and we kind of talked about this, and I feel I wanted to elaborate on our previous conversation. But when you are when you've created these different mediums, games aside, but movies, TVs, animation, that kind of stuff, live action, whatever it may be, now that you know the behind the scenes, do you still kind of get to enjoy these things in the same aspect as since before? Like when you were a kid, you watched a movie and you're like, it took me to a new world and it's magical. And now are
Yep.
you sitting there kind of like, oh, well, and then this, and like, are you still having the same experience? Do you get to turn your brain off, your work brain off, and watch a show at night and sit down?
I have a dual brain always going.
Oh no.
So even on a show that I can love and be absorbed into the story, there's another side to me that's always looking at the lighting and like how do they do that? And I look for reflective objects so that I can, you know, just pull apart what the lighting was and be like, I can see in your glasses, your monitor, and these other lights, and I can see the squareness of them. If I angle my glasses, you can see the lights over here that and the ones that are over here, like these are line lights. You can see it in my glasses there, and and like this is my lightsaber light that I've got here. Whatever. I do that no matter what, and I still love it. What's changed for me though is that if a movie, or TV show leans too heavy on the cliche of visual effects, it loses me really quickly.
Okay.
So a lot of Marvel stuff, I just kind of like it just doesn't do anything for me anymore because it's only about the graphics and it's not about the story. Where there's the stories that move my soul usually are independent movies, and smaller shows, like if you say, for me, the difference of like watching a Marvel, new Doctor Strange movie or watching Only Murders in the Building on Hulu, I'll take Only Murders in the Building any
Only
day.
Murders. What a great thing to bring
It's
up. That show is
so fantastic. Its
it's
story is absolutely king.
oh
Visual effects is like if we need to,
yeah. There's
versus the opposite of going visual effects is king and story is like that's my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah. No, I mean you're not wrong. And anybody who's watched the other episodes that we've talked about, all of our Marvel reviews, especially the latest ones. Like I think like Endgame and some of the other ones maybe had a little bit more emotional effect,
Yeah.
obviously. But like there was, it's yes, I agree with you, especially because I absolutely love Only Murders in the Building because I mean Steve Martin and Martin Short are just they could do anything. They could be reading the phone book, and I will sit there and
Yes.
watch it all day long. And then surprising, not surprising. I don't want to say that because I don't want to put anybody down, but I mean, Selena Gomez was fantastic.
She
She,
impressed me. In
yeah,
fact, since watching that show, like I remember when my son was younger, we would watch Wizards of Waverly Place and whatever Disney stuff, and it was like it was fun. It was whatever.
sure.
She has music, pop music. I don't care. After that show and seeing some of the things where she's standing up for who she is,
Oh yeah,
well, I go, my respect for her went way, way up. And like
Her as a
that's
human being, she's an
exactly.
amazing person. And like I watched this one like TikTok or whatever it was, Instagram, she was live or something, and someone kept sending like hearts or flowers or whatever it is. You
Yeah.
can like buy these things and send it to the person, and it's like sending them money or something like that.
Yeah.
And she was like, wait, what are these hearts? And someone off camera was like, yeah, they're sending you money. And she's like, no, 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 like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Do not send me things. I don't want this. Like, can I give you this money back? Like, she's just a very nice person. And even like these weird feuds that she's having, she's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't want to hate anybody. Like, come
Yeah.
on, like, leave everyone alone, guys. And I'm just like, you're just a wonderful person. And then she does this movie or this show which has like,
Yeah.
she's an interesting character. They don't give too much away each time because her character continues to grow into mystery. And like, Steve Martin and Martin Short get to be Steve Martin and Martin Short, and that's great. But they kind of get to do a little bit something different too. So I didn't mean to just geek out about that show, but it is really
I love it. I love
wonderful.
things like this. Like I watched recently on Apple TV, watched the movie Coda. Have you seen that too?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it. I
It
don't have Apple TV at the moment.
I got it just for like a month, and watched that,
Yeah, you were
and
telling me
like
about that.
I think that that is where, it was a powerful story that kind of moved me about a girl who her entire family is deaf, and she is a child of deaf adult, Coda, and it's her
Ha!
story of how she loves music and wants to go to music school. And like, what a great setup. And it was such a touching story. And like, that's what moves me now.
Yeah.
So when I watch shows, that's what I look for, is stuff that where the story really is just top notch.
It's funny because like and it's no surprise to anybody who knows me. I worked at a Blockbuster for 5 or 6 years, and during that time, it was as an employee you'd get, I mean, essentially unlimited rain, but you got like 10 free rentals a week. And I'm like, who the hell can
Woo-hoo.
watch all these movies? And me, I can watch all of these movies. And I was watching every independent thing that came out. I was watching whatever random foreign films came out. I was watching the big blockbusters, obviously, because it's just,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
fun and good times. I was watching bad action movies, but like now, specifically with like streaming and the pandemic that hit and the way the industry has shifted, like I don't find myself as much watching all of these independent films and these dramas and all that stuff. And that's kind of sad because like I really do like a lot of these movies. I think these performances from some of these actors, like Jonah Hill, has an insanely powerful dramatic range. And like Paul Dano and like all of these people who have just wonderful, amazing talent. Like I don't find myself watching them as often because of the shift in Hollywood and the shift, especially a lot of it was the pandemic as well, because of the way people weren't going to theaters anymore. And the only ones they were going to see were, as you were saying, these giant blockbusters, these cinematic, like special effects. And like when you go to a theater, yes, I want to watch Dune on a big screen because if I'm
Yeah.
going to watch and enjoy these visual effects, I want them as big as humanly possible. Um, how do you feel having worked in some of this industry? Like, do you have an opinion on like the shape of Hollywood and streaming and the pandemic and where movies and TV shows and animation are heading or are at? You gave me I'm trying to like lead you into one of your ebb and flow thing that you were talking about before. So not to
Yeah. I
spoil
mean,
it, but yeah.
yeah, I think it's very interesting. For me personally, working in this industry, I hate going to the movie theater. I don't
Oh,
ever want to go to a movie theater again. I don't like the experience, but
oh,
I do like the storytelling. And I guess it comes down to an ambivert.
sure.
I enjoy people, but only in small groups. And I
Okay.
really like being
Yeah.
social, but not like, put me in a full sale party where there's 150 people, 200 people, 1,000 people, and I don't know what to do with myself. But if you put me into a group of 10 or 15 people, I will be happy forever, and, two or three people. So for me, my solution was I moved recently, and my new house, I have enough space. And so I got myself an 85-inch awesome 4K TV, and I'm in heaven. I got a super powerful sound system, and I live outside of a city now, so I can have a house that doesn't have shared walls. So I crank it up and shake the whole house when we watch movies
Me
every
too.
single night, and like I love this. And so
Yes.
like going to a movie theater to me is like, now I'm going to have people pulling out their phones I swear I had a story where I went to a theater and this lady was babysitting two kids and she was aiming her phone backwards to take pictures of the kid to post to Instagram in the middle of the movie. I'm like,
Mm,
no, I
mm.
respect movies so much that I won't put up with that anymore. I don't want that. I don't like the distraction. I want the story, you
I
know?
agree with you. I'm gonna one up you on a story here. We were living in Brighton, England, and
Yeah.
they had the worst fucking movie theaters in that city. It's a small
I've been
town.
there. I've
Everything in
been
that
there.
country is tiny. But we went to one theater. What were we watching? I feel like we were watching like the Batman or something that was like you're supposed to
Yeah.
really watch this movie, and be drawn in by it. And there was this group of kids and they would laugh at like and fake laugh like like fake laugh at the worst fucking moments. And I am the person who if you do it just enough times, I will get up and scream at you in the middle of a theater if it means they leave. And I was this close, and then they ended up just leaving in the middle of the movie, and they kept coming and going and coming and going, and then they just left. And I was like, oh, thank God. Like you could hear a sigh of relief from everyone in the theater. But I think it's fascinating. I want to get back to more of your point. But for me, when it's a good one, I absolutely love the theater experience, because especially opening nights and those kinds of crowds, because I
Yeah.
feel like with those times you're going to get the people who want to be there, the people who
Yeah.
want to see the show. Like for Avengers, well, we'll say I did a movie marathon in theaters. I saw all six movies back
Wow.
to back. Avengers, everything before Avengers and then that. So I had spent 12 hours in this theater, and
Wow.
it was insane. I don't know that I'll ever do it again, but I was also, it's also 10 years ago and I was a younger person. But um by the time Avengers kicked on, the energy in this, it died right around the was it Captain America or Thor right before, because we're all
Yeah.
like, oh, but then Avengers kicks on and you could feel the electricity. Everyone wanted to be there. The cheering came at the same moment. Nobody was
Yeah.
interrupting. Everybody was hyper focused. And just for me to be in that moment with the people who want to be there, who are truly in love with the character, or even if it's just a drama,
Yeah.
I love that experience. And yes, lately it's been a lot more bullshit than it has great experiences, but I still love going to see my IMAXs and all that stuff. So go on, keep going. Tell me more about your views on the industry and where it's going.
Okay, so I think we had a conversation, so I'm going to let it when we were in Orlando a few weeks ago, and I want to bring this back up for everyone else because I find it fascinating. There was a book that I read that is about matte painting called The Invisible Art, and it's a fantastic book. And in fact, I worked with the guy who wrote it. I found out later, and it was interesting. But what I gained about the book was not just how matte painting has been done through the years, but I saw this trend because it went all the way back to the very first films, and it was like movie magic secrets of like painting on glass. And then they kept it such a secret, like so they would put the camera here in front of a big glass pane, and you'd see the actors, and then they would do a painting to match the background to make it look like like Ben-Hur. There's giant Egypt, and that's how they did those special effects, and they couldn't
Love
build
that.
the sets. It's so cool. But then they would scrape it off with a razor blade after to keep their secret, so that
Hmm,
all this art was destroyed in order to keep the movie magic and keep keep that secret.
man.
But when I was reading this book all the way through up, through the 90s and digital age, I think it was published in the 90s or early 2000s. um I saw this thing that was this wave, this 30-40 year wave, through the book of huge studios owning the industry and running everything, and then independents who shake it up because it gets too big. Again, here's the surfing analogy: waves. There's too much energy and it has to crash. And I feel that we are at the end of a wave of mass studios where the studios are like, the only thing that we let out are $1 billion way of water Avatar Marvel giant movies that cost way too much to make and actually don't have a lot of depth, instead of these small indie things that come up. Star Wars, Indiana Jones. George Lucas was an independent person that threw onto the scene, and then the result of all of that got buyouts, and then became, like Star Wars when it started was an indie film.
Yeah, it was nothing. Nobody wanted to make this movie, and it took him forever to get a studio behind him, and then he finally just was like, I'm gonna make this movie.
And I feel that this is where we're at, and this is where I want it to be at. To go, I want more people to rise up and go in the arts altogether. Actually, in everything altogether, politics too. I want some
Ah,
fresh blood. Like I want new people to come in and be like, I'm sick of the system. I'm sick of the BS, and I want something that I want. Like game studios, one of the things that I found in a lot of game studios is that there was just this old guard of this, boys club, work you to death, glorify, hurting your own physical body in order for the sake of this game because you have passion, we're going to abuse you. And like, I feel like we're at the time where people are like, no, enough. I want mental health. I want physical health. I want to have a family. I want to have hobbies, and I want to make these games. And
yeah.
it's time for new studios to rise up and squash out the old ones that, like, I mean, I don't want to speak bad of any particular studio or anything like that,
It's
but
fine by me. Go ahead. No.
the hours that I put in at Naughty Dog, I'm like, I'm just not going to do it. I just don't think that they respected their
You
employees enough.
you worked for Naughty
I've
Dog,
worked,
didn't you?
yeah, I worked on Uncharted Lost Legacy, and it was brutal. And it was like, I'm sorry, this no game is worth your health. There was somebody there
Agreed.
who left, and we were all like, why are you quitting? Where are you going? What studio are you going to? And they're like, my doctor told me that if I keep doing this, I'll die. So I'm leaving the
Jesus.
industry. And I'm like, no game is worth this. No movie, no cartoon, no
No.
nothing is worth this. We are just making stories and fun things. See, we're making entertainment. This should be a fun job. And
Yeah.
so anybody who money grabbing, getting into this and just seeking for money only, like I hope those days are over. I hope we have a Me Too movement, but for just abuse in the industry of mental health, where we
Yeah.
all rise up and go, nope, we're starting new studios, and we will have good producers who will actually ask us questions and make sure that we're on time. And if you're going overtime, that's a production problem, that is not an artist problem. And that's a leadership problem.
Yeah.
I feel very passionate about this, and this is
No,
part of
I
why I've jumped around through a lot of companies, because like I just don't like the leadership there and there and there. And
and that's where I'm getting at, and part of what I do through this series, the Versus series, what I'm trying to do is get stories told, whether it's through diversity, whether it's through equality, whether it's through mental health, whether it's through anything. I want those things to get out there. I'm my wife's in the gaming industry, and having gone to Full Sail, I've talked to people who are heads of studio. Not, I haven't gone to Full Sail, having been at the Hall of Fames. I've talked to people who are heads of studios. I've talked to people who are grunts working their way through it. I've got a friend back in Chicago who's worked. He worked for Midway Games and now NetherRealm Studios, and he's been with them for 20 years or something like that. But like, they're a little bit better than I think some of the other studios. Now they're WB and all that kind of stuff, but like, he's been QA and he loves it, and he speaks no ill of it. And there's a lot
that's
of
amazing.
studios, and being just a husband of someone in the industry, I can't name any thing because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But like, I know of studios that are very much in what you're describing, and there are a lot of these indies. They're not the AAA studios, and a lot of them have come a long way, and are doing better. But I really, it's true. There's been too much. Taking advantage of people's passions and working them to the bone, because then suddenly when they come out of a game, that passion's gone. They're not going to go work on another game. They're killing the talent in the industry, and if they want the industry to thrive, they need to nourish the talent. They need to help develop it, help make sure these people are taken care of, so that they can continue to do what they love and continue to make games that the studios want to put out. So it's a whole cycle, and I think especially in Hollywood now, we're getting to that point. Obviously, with the writers' strike happening, and we're going to have SAG renegotiations, and nobody's expecting that to go well from a producer's point of view. From there may or may not be another strike there, and if we're getting suddenly the writers and the actors are going to strike, like, okay, that should be very eye-opening to these people, because something needs to happen, something needs to change, because when one, compensation needs to be fair across the board for everybody, because the writers are the unsung heroes, the actors really just bring it to life. And I think that if we can kind of get some more equality for everybody, we'll start seeing more dramas, more independent movies get more time on the big screen
Yeah.
and get the ability to make money and the ability to be made. There was a thing that Matt Damon said, and I'm gonna butcher it, I guarantee it, but he was talking about, if you can find this interview, I don't remember who he was talking to, but it's definitely an interview worth oh no, it was on, I think it was on Hot Ones. I think it was one of his Hot Ones. And he was talking about how his bread and butter, his niche, his thing that he really loved making were those $50 million movies, those middle of the pack kind of drama, kind of somewhat quirky comedies, somewhat, whatever, those middle of the pack movies that, they didn't have to be a smash hit at the theater. But with streaming now suddenly happening, like if a movie was made for $50 million, it didn't do great, it made a little bit of money at the box office, there was a second wave for investors
Yeah.
because there was DVD sales, there was rentals, there was, people purchasing this movie again, and nobody's buying movies anymore. Can you think of a movie or a DVD that you purchased in the last 10 years? Like since Netflix and Amazon and Disney Plus and HBO Max, you can watch almost anything you want
Yep.
at any time. And this is the reason that there's a strike, because there's the
Exactly.
compensation not happening for this. There's no, there is money being made, but people aren't getting paid like they used to, and the movies aren't getting made like they used to, and it's sad. It really is, because there's so many good movies that were made. You think of like Kevin Smith movies, those aren't
Yep.
I'm I'm surprised his movies are still getting made. I love him to death, but like they're not big blockbuster movies. They're not making the money that there's that they would on DVD sales, because that's where the fans are. So I don't know. That's where I am on that one. I kind of went on a rant there for a minute, but thank you for allowing me to kind of rant. I don't know, I'm
Yeah.
interviewing you here, but I go on these rants.
I like this conversation. I think this is fun. I mean, it's better when it's not an interview. It's a
Yes.
conversation,
I,
you know?
I I mean, that's why I'm doing it. I love talking to you. You have very interesting thoughts. Before we even got on here, we just talked about where we lived and what type of weather we liked. I
Exactly.
mean, that's what I love. Um, I do have to ask a couple of questions though, because
Sure.
it's what we do. Um, so actually, let's do this. We've discussed a lot of the work that you've done in a lot of these films and video games and movies and stuff like that. And I mentioned in my rant, nourishing and helping build up these next generation of people. And I know from personal conversations and from listening to some of your panels at Full Sail, which I believe you can still go watch on YouTube on the Full
I
Sail
think so.
University YouTube page. So go check those out. You, my friend, I believe, have been in the process of starting your own business. And you know what? I'm just going to let you take the ground. Tell me about your business. Tell me about what you're trying to do in the industry, and go from there.
So I've had two different passions, passion for art, and then I really love helping people. I mean, I guess it's just part of my personality trait. I'm a helper, and I just like, when tour groups come through, at Pixar, you can't have a public tour. You have to know somebody. And I was delighted to give those tours. And a lot of my friends would be like, why would you do that? And like, because there's times where this industry is so harsh, and it's not that the industry, it's not the people side, but just like we're working with computers and cutting edge technology, which means it's going to be hard to figure this out because nobody's ever done what we're doing. We're literally on that cutting edge. And a lot of the times, like, my brain hurts from trying to figure out new stuff. But when I have people come to the studio that have that fresh inspiration, like, you have the coolest job on the planet, I need that reminder to go, I really do. I'm really fortunate. It was just,
Thanks.
like, it's like a fresh life for me. Like, when we go to the Full Sail Hall of Fame events, and I haven't been able to come to a lot of them because of production. I love that feeling of refreshment of going, this is really cool. And this is really amazing what we get to do. What I spend
Yeah.
my days doing, I wake up in the morning, I'm excited about it. And I look forward to work, and if I reach a point that I'm not, I need to change something, I love being able to do what I do. But I love helping people with that along the way. I've always mentored people. I've always done classes and things like that at every studio, just because I learn more. I'm curious and I want to learn more. And so through the years, I've often thought, like, I'm always working for someone else. 25 years into my career
Yeah.
now, and I'm making other people's stories, and I'm selling their products, and I'm making their games. And like, what do I have to offer? Could I ever have true control over my time? I've never been my own boss. I was freelance before. I did, freelance illustration, and I worked, but again, it was like mini contracts with a lot of other people, where I'm making an illustration for Lego and for Disney and for Sony and for Ubisoft or whoever, and doing these one-off tasks, as mini jobs. Like, but what would I have to offer the world? And at this point, I think what I have is my skills as a lighting artist to share lighting. Yeah, and the last company I was at was a great company, great people, but the hours were intense. Working on the Fallout TV series, was just, it was a lot, and I was on set for 6 weeks, away from my family in New York,
I
and
know you say it was intense and it's like that's so cool to me, man. Like
I mean, it was
working on like
awesome.
Fallout, like that's fucking awesome. You
It
know what I
was
mean?
really, it was really cool, but then I'm not having a balanced, healthy life at the same time.
What
You
you
go like,
need.
I don't know the answer to that, but see, the difference was a lot of the people that are on set, they go and they work really intense 15-hour days, 7 days a week for months on end, and then they take 6 months off. Like, but not for my industry. We work those 10 hours and then come back to a 48, 50-hour week immediately right after, and like, I need to rethink what I'm doing. And so I have decided to start my own company called Lighting Mentor. So lightingmentor.com, and it's going to go live next week. I don't know when this podcast will be out there, but it'll be
What's
out
the
in the
date
world.
that it's gonna go live? Because this will probably come out after it goes live.
Yeah, I mean, basically by June 1st.
By June, roughly right around June 1st.
Yeah,
Got it. Cool.
so approximately, and when it's going to be like a soft launch. I didn't mean for this to advertise it because I got to see how it goes.
Sure,
But
sure.
what I want to bring is to help people get into the industry that are really interested in color and light. And whether it be painting and illustration, that's how it's going to start, is really simple classes for beginners of like understanding composition and color and light and cinematography and photography and that type of thing. And it'll eventually get to the higher end 3D side of it, and lighting for gaming and lighting for animation and visual effects, is where I want to take it. And it's going to take a couple of years to build the curriculum for that, but I
Yeah.
have enough built right now for the intro painting classes, and it's just fun. I get to interact with people every day. I get to do workshops. I get to mentor one-on-one with people, and that's something that I really enjoy. And then I get to spend my day doing art. And eventually, my goal is, once it gets enough, kind of like I built the curriculum and it's kind of underway, I'm hoping that it can take like a maybe 10, 15 hours a week. I mentor people, and then the rest of the week I go and I make my own movies. And that's what I want to do. I want to do indie movies, just like what you said with Matt Damon. It's like, I want to make $2 million low budget films.
Yeah.
Really, that's considered crazy low budget, but the stories are strong.
$2 million is a lot of money to me, but to a
It's a
movie,
lot of money
that's
to me too, but for
yeah,
the movie industry, that's like nothing.
yeah.
And so, I think, or even $500,000, whatever. I just want to tell stories that I think have meaning and purpose. And
I
that's
love
my
that.
eventual goal, to go art, storytelling, and that's what I love the most, and that's where I'm aiming.
I love that, man. That's so cool. I love that you're just so dedicated to giving back and helping other people kind of find their way through this crazy industry, which can be very demanding. And hopefully it goes very well for you, man. I'm always rooting
Oh, thank
for
you.
you. And I love that you just want to make indie films. Like that's a beautiful thing, because for some people it's an indie film, but for the people in it, this is the film. Like this is their movie, this is what they're doing. And it's you could be involved in somebody's start to of their rise to stardom. I mean, you could be with the next Brad Pitts and Angelinas and Paul Danos and Jonah Hills. They could be the next ones working on one of your movies. And I love that even just by working and making your own indie films, you're still it's still a form of kind of giving back, because there's other people involved in the film. It's not just you standing there with a microphone going, I like stories. It's going to
Yep.
be a collaborative effort, and that's helping people move forward, because everybody's got to start somewhere. You can't just get out of the industry and go work for Christian Tomatoes and everything like that. So
Yeah,
um,
exactly. there
um,
was there was a moment in it's funny. There's this idea of moments in time. There's a Greek word kairos, which is, there's chronos and there's kairos. And chronos means just time that ticks on,
okay.
but kairos means very particular moments that change history. Like that is a defining moment, and you never know when they're going to come. And I remember going to a film festival when I lived in Oregon, and there was a film that was premiering there that was called Leave No Trace. And it's a teeny tiny, super indie film. And the filmmakers were there, and these two ladies, and they decided they were going to make movies. They make a movie every 5 years or so. They did Winter's Bone and
Oof,
several different things,
that was a great movie.
and that was what they did. They were like, we don't go in the industry, and they were the ones who discovered Jennifer Lawrence. I
Yeah,
believe that was her
100%.
first, and that was her first film. That was a defining moment. That was a kairos moment for me, meeting these two women who made these films, and they were just like, we don't want to put up with the Hollywood BS. We're done with that. We want to just make great stories, low budget great stories. And it's not like pumping them out, every 6 months. Like every 5 years they have a film. But they go into communities and they get to know the people and they get to know the story. And this film that I watched at this festival is about, it's based off of a little blip of a true story of a guy who was found in Portland, Oregon, living in the park with his, coming of age 12-year-old daughter, 13-year-old daughter. And they took him out of the forest. He had PTSD from serving in war, and they put him in a house and got the kid in school, and then they just disappeared and vanished, and that was it. That's the real life story that really happened. They just disappeared and were never seen from again. So they made this dramatized story based off of reality of someone going through PTSD, but this girl who is also learning about life, a coming of age story, and how she's like, I don't have the PTSD that you have, Dad, and I want to move on with life. And
Wow.
so to me, that was like, wow, that was a powerful story. And
Yeah.
it's such a different flavor. If you get to go see the film, it is such a quiet film. There's no massive action in it, but it's so touching, and it's got this potent calmness, like it hits you hard. I thought I was really moved by it.
Oh, that's
And I was
good.
also moved by these two women to go, that I like that. I want that calm, create quality and do it slowly and not have to have the panic of Hollywood and always be in a rush, but like quality life. And then you make a product that is good enough to pay for the next product. Like I think sustainability is a big word in my own business, or like I don't ever want to go public because I don't ever want a group of investors that are like, you have to grow 20% every year. Eternal growth to me is one of those things that I think is dangerous. I think that sustainability is much better. Like I just want
Hmm.
to see something like a mom pa bread shop, and every day they have their customers and they don't get wealthy, but they have enough to keep
Yeah.
doing it. Like that's what I wish more of the world would go for. Like
Yeah.
I don't like the stock market from the ever growing, always consuming. Like, I feel like the world needs less consumers and more creators. And like I
I
just want sustainable creators.
100% couldn't agree with you more. That's it. It really is. Hollywood in general, for sure, is about the almighty dollar,
Yep.
unfortunately, and too much of the art has been lost. I mean, again, I'm obviously going to stay on brand with like comic book and nerdy stuff, but like you look at things like what happened recently with Warner Brothers, with the merger, and they dropped a whole bunch of films. The most notable of that was the Batgirl movie that they just were like, this is done, but you're never going to see it. Like, to me, it's not so much that like I don't get to see it. Yes, I wanted to, because again, we're in the Brendan Fraser assance, his comeback,
Yeah.
and I really
Yeah.
wanted to see him in like some big action movie, which would be fun.
Yeah.
But like it's not about that to me. I look at it and I'm like, do you know how many people worked on this movie? How many people put their blood, sweat, and tears into this film to make it something? It doesn't matter if you think, David Zasloff, that it's going to be a not return your dollar amount on it, but like this was someone's art project. This was their dream. This was their make it or break it moment, and you just broke it. And
Yep.
that to me, it shouldn't be movies shouldn't be made from a studio point of view. The decisions shouldn't come from, oh, it's not going to make me money. Let us decide if it's going to make you money. We will give you the money. You don't get to determine how much it's going to make. The viewers, the fans, if it's worth it, it will happen. And just having Brendan, what he didn't notice is having Brendan Fraser attached to anything right now is liquid gold. And
Yeah.
because he's Mr. Nice Guy. He's the
Yep.
comeback story we all want. He is the Hollywood we want in the future. It's just a
Yep.
nice guy, very humble, wants to make films, wants to be a part of this industry. Think about everything he went through in the last 15 to 20 years. And the fact that he got up, dusted himself off and said, I'm going to make another movie and I want it to be passionate. And he came back with The Whale, and he came back with a
Yep.
couple other movies. He was in like a small Scorsese movie, or an upcoming Scorsese movie, I think, and he did some other crime drama. And like I haven't seen it yet, but I want to. And like it's like this is what I think Hollywood should be about. It shouldn't be about trying to become larger than life necessarily, unless it's within the art form. Show me the art becoming larger than life, not your pocketbooks. I don't really care that you've made a shitload of money. I care, obviously I'm a comic book nerd, so anytime I go watch one of those movies, I'm just like, I'm in it because whatever. But I do love, like, they remade True Grit with
Yeah.
one of my favorite actors, Jeff Bridges, hands down, and Matt Damon, again, amazing. And then you got Haley Steinfeld, and her performance and what she did in that movie was incredible. And it's a literal first film credit ever, and it was Oscar buzz, and it was a Golden Globe buzz, and all this stuff. And I could get into my opinions on the Oscars and the Golden Globes and how big of a joke they are, but it's still cool to see recognition from other people in the industry that like someone could make a standout performance in something that is supposedly supposed to be one of these big blockbuster remakes. So it's moments like that that I really like to see and really want more of. So knowing that you're going to be doing a lot of this moving forward really just, it lifts my heart. And the more people doing this stuff, I'm really excited, to hear about some movie you make in the future. And I'm just going to text you and be like, hey man, let me get a copy of this. Like, how
Yeah.
can I buy this? Where do I go? Is it in theaters? How do I see these movies? Because they are hard unless you are on the festival circuits. Sometimes you'll never see these movies. You'll never even hear of these movies, and it's sad. And thankfully I live in Austin, Texas, and there's a very nice indie film community going on here, and there's a lot of little mini film festivals, and not just South by Southwest but other
Right.
festivals that come around. And so I will be given the opportunity, not given, but I will, I have the opportunity to go see these things. So I think that's super cool. I just want to hang out with you for a little bit right
Yeah,
now.
I know. Yeah, I
What's
mean, we
what,
too bad we live so far away.
I
Otherwise,
know,
it'd be like,
right?
oh, we should get together all the time. This is
Yeah, for
great.
sure. So I mean, all right, let's just. What are you watching? What are you watching? Any TV shows? What do you watch
Okay,
at night?
so I watched one that I actually one of the best new shows. It was so whack. It was so weird.
I
Mrs.
won't.
Davis, or yeah, Mrs. Davis. Have you seen it? It's a sci-fi show. It
Is
was
it that
on,
nun one where
yeah.
she's like a future and like the world's being taken over by
And
AI and
she
she has to
has to
kind of like
find the
fight it?
holy grail to
Yeah,
stop the AI. And
I've heard of
strangely
it.
enough, I mean, because I have Xfinity, for my internet here, and it
Boo!
can't.
I hate Xfinity. I'm sorry, but
Xfinity here is so good. I don't know
oh, it is.
why. The best
Xfinity in
internet I've
Chicago is the fucking worst. I hate
This
it.
is the best internet I've ever had, and I live in rural Georgia. I'm outside of Atlanta, and I can have 10 gigabit here if I want at my house.
Jesus.
It's crazy. So I have gigabit internet, and it is solid, and it's always on, and we never have issues with it. And it included Peacock streaming service with it. So I'm
Is
like,
it on
okay,
Peacock? That's what the
it's
show's
on
on.
Peacock, yeah.
Okay.
And another show that I absolutely love that's on Peacock, at least the first season, was Resident Alien.
With
With
Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk. So funny.
I haven't seen
So,
it, but I've heard good things. I
oh
love
man,
Alan Tudyk.
he is the best. This, to me, the first season of Resident Alien is his best role that I think he's ever done.
That's
I,
amazing.
I think it's awesome.
That,
Anyhow, this series, Mrs. Davis, it is so weird. It is so different from anything I've ever seen. but at the end it was, at the finale episode was like, I think that might have been the best finale episode I've seen on any show
Oh
ever.
shit.
It like
Okay.
wrapped everything up, and I hate when things end on huge cliffhangers, and this one like actually truly wrapped everything in the most satisfying way for my tastes. So that's one that we just got through last week,
I like
that
it.
we're watching, and like, I liked it. We didn't know whether we would like the end. We're like, this could really bomb terribly, and then we watched the last episode and like, okay, that's really good. We're gonna start it again, and watch it a second
Yeah.
time.
Endings
So
are tough, man. I can't remember if I did an episode about seasons finales. Series finales I feel are
yeah,
more impactful, obviously, but I want to. It's just really hard to always not bring up Game of Thrones because it really triggers my co-host Dan.
yeah.
He goes off on it, but that's hard. They're very hard. Did you watch the Orville with Seth MacFarlane?
No, no, I didn't.
It's not. I mean, if you're a Trekkie, if you're in that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
it's up your alley. I'm not a huge Trekkie. I do absolutely love sci-fi, and this really, I was like, oh, Seth MacFarlane, this is going to be some dumb dick and fart joke, and it really wasn't. Like, it
yeah,
was actually, I was like, oh shit, he really loves Star Trek, and you can tell by the story. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Is it the best show ever? No, obviously not. But it got renewed on like Hulu or something like that, or whatever, for a third season, and so it ended, but they did something different, and it didn't really land with me as much as I wanted it to, but it was an ending. Like, they
yeah,
ended the show. It's not a cliffhanger. They wrapped up a bunch of their stories, and like the last episode was like some weird wedding, but it like tied up emotional stories as well, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, it left it open. If they want to do another show, if they can do another show, they will, but it's not like, you go and watch some of these movies. Like, I watched did you ever see Push with
yeah,
Chris Evans?
yep,
It was a fun movie. I think it was
yeah.
a superhero movie before superhero movies, and it was
Good
fun.
popcorn film before he
Yeah,
was
great
Captain
pun.
America.
But they ended it with like, they're gonna do more, and they never did. And so it's like, especially right now, like with the way everything is, and things are being canceled left and right on streaming for fuck all reasons. Like, I'm like, why do you do this? Like, why would you leave like these giant cliffhangers? Like, if your season is ending and you've already been renewed and you're working on the next season, go ahead, cliffhanger me. That's fine. But like, if you're like, oh, I don't know if we're gonna get another season, finish
Well,
your fucking story. Like, just finish
I
the story.
I want to pay quality for good stories, not feel like I'm being strung along for my money and my time to
Yeah.
watch.
So I'm watching Lucifer, which
Yeah,
it's a great show. I'm enjoying it. Once Netflix picked it up, the tone shifted very differently. I was like, oh, this is a fun little comedy. Oh my God, this is
oh,
a really intense like, he really
okay,
self-identifying. He's going through all these struggles. She's going through. I was like, holy shit. So we're not done with it yet. We're in the middle of the fifth season, and we're coming. There's one more season left for us. And there are moments, though, to your point, where I'm like, I feel like they're just really dragging some of this out. Like, this fifth season, I'm like, we did all of this self-discovery, we did all of this, oh, they're finally getting together, and then now we're backtracking. But then again, it's TV, and it's one of these like cop shows, and so you gotta have that trope of that. They even talk about it, that like that sexual tension, that
yep,
will they, won't they, as like that's the
yep.
whole part of the show. And then now every show they do, and it's like, well, where do you go from there? So now I'm in
Did
that
you
point.
watch? If you watch Lucifer, have you watched Good Omens?
Not
Also,
yet.
out of them.
I
Oh,
want to. I
Good
love.
Omens is so. I mean, it's basically the Lucifer story,
Yeah,
but done better, way
cool.
better. I
I
mean,
mean, I'm
and
down. Well, they're
I
both
don't
Neil
even know
Gaiman.
how they have Neil Gaiman did it. He did both.
Yeah,
He created both.
yeah,
I think the Good Omens is far better,
sure.
personally. And it wraps the first season. They have a new season that's coming out in July, Good Omens 2. And like,
It took
I
so
don't even know
long.
how. I know it did. It took forever. But to me, it's like every minute I can rewatch Good Omens as many times as possible, because every single line, every single minute has purpose. Where Lucifer is fun, but I don't feel like it has purpose.
Yeah, and if you're looking for like a mindless fun, there's decent characters and interesting things that happen.
Yep.
Lucifer, that's your show. You know what I mean? And it takes a tone, and I really want to see how it finishes, because
Yep.
I'm 5 seasons deep. I'm not going to just stop on a show. But I don't know if you find this happening to you, but like I obviously it sounds like it doesn't, but like I'm always so hesitant to like start something new. I don't know why. Like I'm like, oh, I want to watch something new. I want to be driven by a new story. I'm just gonna go watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like I'm just
Another great one, another fantastic series.
I
Yeah,
couldn't tell you how. And that's the thing though, is if a show is really, 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 really good, it will draw you back and you will find something new to enjoy about it every single time. And for me, that's Avatar. At one point for
yep,
me, it was Firefly,
yep.
because I loved it. And I don't know if it was because of all the cancellation hype behind it and the nerddom wave that we were all riding. I still do enjoy the show. It's
Me
witty, it's
too.
fun.
I
It's a
rewatch that every couple of years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little bit harder to watch right now with Joss Whedon being a total piece of shit. But look, other people that worked on this show
But Alan
deserve
Tiddick's in it. Nathan
Alan.
Fillion's in it. I
Uh,
mean, just the whole
the whole
crew, man.
cast. I
They're
I got to
amazing.
I got to meet Nathan Fillion, super nice guy. I heard
Yeah.
he's a little difficult on set now because his ego got a little bit to his head, but
Mm.
he's still a nice guy and to his fans and to
Yep.
the people around him. So that's nice. So I mean, I love it's hard for me, to pick up a new show, which I think is weird because I have so much love for this industry that I'm like, yeah, I want to watch more stuff. And then I'm like, I'm gonna go watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine again. Just like
Yeah.
just like
My
random.
wife is the same way. She's just like, I don't know about a new series. Eh. We
Yeah,
just upgraded her her phone, and along with it came 3 months of Apple, TV Plus. And we're like, okay, what's on there? And
Ted
we just
Lasso.
watched yeah, Ted Lasso's great. We just watched one that was a total risk. We'd never heard of it, called The After Party. And it's a mystery. And it was like one of those things like, it's gonna be stupid. And it sort of is, but it's roped us in, and like it's fun.
Yeah.
And it's a mystery of like, it is a murder happens at a party, and then the investigator is going one by one to each person, and they're retelling their story in a style of a unique movie, and they go through all the different genres. So this one's a musical, this one's a horror, this one's
Oh,
it's just really bizarre and fun. But I like that kind of discovery of something new, and like, well, we'll risk it. We've had risk ones where we've started watching a show and we're like, no, we're done.
yeah.
That's it.
I've done that too. I can't think of it, but I know we did it like fairly recently. But I also like will watch stupid shit like we
Yeah,
just watched The King of Collectibles or whatever by
yeah,
with Ken Golden but for me I'm just like it's just all this like sports and nerd memorabilia and stuff like that. I'm like that's cool, man. Like someone like some kid had like an F1 racing card and he ended up getting like almost $1 million for it. And I
wow,
was like, that's fucking cool. Like, I just love nerd shit. I'm a collector. Obviously, every comic book reader by trait is a collector because hello, I mean, it's just whoa,
yeah.
desk. So it's just kind of fun. Um, I'm curious, what was the last video game you played for enjoyment?
Oh, absolutely. Minecraft. I mean,
That's hilarious.
we have the longest running, like we've had this huge world that we're playing. My wife and I play it, and we're playing on survival, peaceful mode. So like I build these huge structures, but like I have to, I can't fly. I don't have unlimited
Yeah,
resources. I go back to the original, and like we bring that up. We play it all the time,
that's awesome.
like every week, and got the new Lego Star Wars, and we're like almost at 100% of completing absolutely everything.
I love getting 100% on those Lego games.
Yep.
I don't know what about it. It is so satisfying to just get 100% because you have to play it like 3 or 4 times all the way through.
Lego Harry Potter, we have 100%ed
So many.
probably like 9 times.
Yeah,
And then
I
we start over and play the whole thing all the way through.
I
Every
love that
achievement.
game. It's one
It's
of
so
my
good.
favorite Lego anything. And I think Lego Harry Potter and Lego Star Wars stand apart
Yeah, they're the
because
best.
the biggest ones for me, the biggest reason is you don't need to go up to an item to
Yeah,
to do the thing. You can be across the room, be like, I need that, and use the force, use your wand, do whatever. You
so much
have a
fun.
little bit of range, and I
Yep.
love it. Yeah, no, it's as fantastic. I'm actually was about to start possibly streaming the Lego Star Wars live. I don't know. I might. So stay tuned. If you
It's
like
cool.
watching my
Yeah.
stuff, then you'll enjoy me doing that stuff. But I'm playing I'm about to start a new game of this one called Grounded, where
Hmm.
it's like a survival game. where you have to like craft and like gather resources and build a base and go
Yep.
through your story as you do so. But you are it's basically like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. You're shrunken and you're in a
Oh, that's right.
backyard, so your base is now made out of leaves of grass or
I like it.
stems and stuff like that. And so it's multiplayer, so I'm playing it with all my friends and my wife, and we're all playing. And we played one story full the way all the way through. Such a new game that they just released new content to it, and it's like adding like an extra second half of a game onto it. So we're like, let's just start over and do it again. And now we're finally waiting for everyone to like be home at the same time. One of my friends was in
Yeah.
Bali, I was traveling for the last 2 months, and now sudden one of my friends is about to leave again, so we're like, all right, let's come on, let's do this thing. So
Another one.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. So again, we could just shoot the shit for another 2 hours, but we are running and or out of time to do this. But I want to do this again. Other than your website for your
Lightning
business. Sorry, my
Thunder. Yep.
my yeah, my brain just turned off for a second there.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, you're like, I've been talking for how long? Good night. And so where can they find you? How can someone reach out to you? If you even want people, obviously you don't mind people reaching out to you. So where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, I've got my YouTube channel. So if you look up Light Ponderings on YouTube, I'm sure you can put a link in here somewhere as
I
well
shall.
and message me that way. I'm okay on LinkedIn, just Jeremy Vickery on LinkedIn as well. It depends on the background of how we had connections there. But through my website, you can the lightingmentor.com as well should have a way to contact me if you want to ask questions directly. I'm always eager to help young, new, passionate geeks like us who just want to make cool stuff, and like I will encourage anybody to just keep going because it's worth it. As much as there's struggles and there's pain in this, it's so worth it.
Yeah.
I love creating. I think it's the best thing for the soul too. Again, the advantages of deciding not to be a consumer but to be a creator foremost. Like we're all going to consume something, but I hate that word. Like I would rather spend more of my life creating than consuming. It's
Yeah.
totally worth it.
Unfortunately for me, my creation comes after consuming. So I'm going to go consume some more media and then talk about it for a little while. But I
But you're
am,
creating this. This is
yeah,
great. We created a conversation
yeah,
and spurring people's ideas and challenging their worldviews to be like, you can do this. It's
yeah,
amazing. Always keep
completely.
creating.
I
Yeah.
love it. And I love seeing other people's creations. Obviously, I mean, I've got panels from comic books down here. I've got artwork. I've got originals that I had people make for me over here. These are friends of mine that made this. This one in
Oh,
the
so
middle here is
cool.
another buddy of mine that made it. And I was like, I will support you and I will buy your shit. Don't give it to me for free. I will pay you for it because I want you to
So
keep
good.
creating. So we've loved it. Thank you, Jeremy, for coming on here and
Yeah,
taking the
thank
time out of
you.
your schedule to do this. I know you've been a busy guy. As I say every week, if you've had a good time, thank you for watching. And we've been the Modern Nerd.